Good afternoon. Very well done. I'm Pat Connolly. I'm really just doing the introduction part of this presentation. Karen's going to do the heavy lifting. It makes me think of my son. On Sunday, I had 2 pages of notes, and I had left them on the dining room table. And my son picked them up and said, "What is this?" And I said, "It's my notes for a presentation on Tuesday." And he said, 2 pages? And I said, "Well, I'm not really doing the presentation. I'm just introducing the person that's doing the presentation and giving some background." And he said, "So wait a minute." He's 13. He said, "So wait a minute. You've now gone from being the person that gets paid to talk to people to the person that gets paid to introduce people to talk to people." And I said, "Yes." And he said, "I want that job when I grow up." I told him it's easier to get than you think. I want to give you some, how many of you know Sodexo? Okay, so a little less than half probably. And even those that raise their hand, I suspect, don't know Sodexo. Although we've moved past the days of saying to your family members you work for Sodexo and they say, "Sodexo?" To a little bit more recognition. I like to say that we're the biggest company that nobody's ever heard of. We're 415,000 employees in 80 countries. We are the 21st largest employer in the world. We're in a wide variety of businesses. They're all tied together with one set of values, the primary one being that we're in business to improve the quality of life of people as they come together. And we'd like to share some of that related to diversity in the company. Site services, personal and home services, and motivation solutions. And most people know us for on-site services. So in healthcare, you might know us for food, housekeeping, engineering, non-clinical services in hospitals and retirement communities. We're a bit more broad than on-site services. Sodexo is in a little bit of everything. We're honored to feed the U.S. Marine Corps. We do the maintenance for KLM Airlines. We do the grounds at Stonehenge. We run the restaurants in the Eiffel Tower. We have a contract to keep the polar bears off the Alaskan oil pipeline. If you were watching the Olympics, either in London or Vancouver, Sodexo fed the athletes, ran the restaurants, did the maintenance, and did all the ticket sales and packaging of corporate packages. We run the background services at the Tour de France. We do at Formula One. We're in a little bit of everything. When the miners were trapped in the mine in Chile, it was Sodexo that created the tube feeding system to get food down to them so that they could survive until they were brought up to the surface. It's a big company that's in a lot of different things that usually people don't know we're sort of in the background on. Personal and home solutions are a little bit different. You might be familiar with Comfort Keepers. It's the #2 largest non-medical home care company in the United States. It's a Sodexo company. If you own an American Express card and you call the concierge and book tickets, let's say, you are calling Sodexo. We own an interest in a company called Tutor.com. I've used it with my kids. It's online tutoring with a personal connection. In businesses like that, and we're in motivation solutions. What began as a voucher business in Europe for our employees has evolved into a motivation business where we provide motivation and recognition programs for corporations, typically in Europe where companies get tax breaks or tax benefits by providing vouchers as opposed to cash as incentives. We are the #2 provider, for instance, of smart cards behind MasterCard in the world through the utilization of that business. So we're a very big business that nobody knows of. One of the things that sort of cuts through this whole thing is it's a large business and it's very dispersed in a lot of different places. So we're a successful company with genuinely good intentions. We set out to see if we can improve the quality of life of people as they come together. Our values are strong. We were a company built, we began in 1966 as a one-man company delivering box lunches to sailors on the docks of Marseille, France. We're now over $20 billion and in every services business you can imagine. We think we're really good at what we're doing, and we think that we're a really good company. And yet our diversity journey began 12 years ago, and for lack of better terms, it began with a bang. Diversity became a key priority for us, really as one of our main key priorities in 2001, at the point that a class action lawsuit was filed against us and was certified in Washington, D.C. And we ultimately settled that class action suit for an enormous amount of money that would absolutely blow your mind. But the thing that was interesting about it, I was there at the time, was that we in leadership were surprised by it. The typical reaction when the class action suit was filed was, this can't be so. It's us. We're a good company. We're good people. We take care of people. This can't be happening. The fact of the matter was that it did. Now, what was interesting, I think, about the class action suit was that the finding was not that Sodexo had or any of its people had discriminated against anybody, but the finding was that we didn't have processes and procedures in place to assure that we wouldn't discriminate against anybody. So I think what's unique about Sodexo is that it would have been very easy at the time to say, well, let's see what we need to do to fix the processes that aren't working appropriately. Instead, Sodexo used this as an opportunity to change our organization, to completely change the company that we are. And Christy, in her introduction, mentioned some of the awards that we've won for diversity. We've been #1 and then #2 for the last 2 years on Diversity Inc.'s list of top companies for diversity and inclusion. We were incredibly honored recently to be awarded the Catalyst Award, which is an award given to 1 or 2 companies worldwide a year that advance women, and particularly of women of color, into leadership positions within their organization. We have come a long way on the journey. Now, what was the context for the journey, which is backdrop for what Karen will share with you about how we took that journey, was one, we're a large geographically dispersed business. We are in the United States, we're in 14,000 locations. We have anywhere from 1 employee to hundreds of employees in each location. Clearly, leadership wasn't aware of our biases or the challenges that we had facing diversity because we were really caught off guard. We're guests in our clients' houses. So where we do business with you, it's your business and it's they're your customers, and we're there to support you. We had a little bit of an industry image problem. The services industry is male-dominated and was probably 10 years behind most industries when it comes to diversity and inclusion, and I don't think that we were any exception. I have up here that we have a French parent as a company, and I'll just very simply say that they do things differently there. We had to make a case for this in a business-to-business industry, which is very difficult to do, and which meant in order for us to change, we probably have to help the businesses where we operate change as well. So we can come to your locations and operate in your houses and believe that we bring a culture of inclusion with us. But if it doesn't exist within your organizations, or if it's behind where we are in your organizations, we have an obligation and a responsibility to help you with that. And it is, I believe, something that makes us very different, is that while we take the delivery of the services that we provide very seriously, we equally take seriously that we have to help you succeed at what you do. And if there are things that we do that we can bring to you that are helpful, and they're not necessarily the service that we're there to provide, that's what we should be doing. So that's predominantly the reason why we're here today, to share the journey with you. And I turn it over to Karen Penn now to carry on.
Thanks, Pat. Good afternoon. As Pat noted, Sodexo is sometimes known as the biggest company you've never heard of. And myself, in full disclosure, I'm a recovering attorney, former employment attorney. So initially, I became aware of Sodexo because of the class action lawsuit. I transitioned from law into compliance and diversity, and that's where I've been focused for the last 15 years. So I was one of those, as relatively new to the company, kind of knew about Sodexo, but not really what they did, but I knew that they got diversity and inclusion. But we didn't get it overnight. The official journey began just over 10 years ago. As Christy noted, and as Pat noted, we have been awarded with accolades throughout industry, including Diversity Inc. and those that you see before you. But we're certainly not resting on our laurels. And from each of these awards, we take the opportunity through the process, the rigorous process of applying for these awards, to benchmark and to really understand where we have gaps. We absolutely still have gaps, and we participate in these benchmarking opportunities for the purpose of continuous improvement and maturing along that journey. For those that may have heard of Sodexo's kind of a journey in the past and other avenues, you may have heard of our 10 key elements, which we say are responsible and are a key part of our cultural transformation and to really embedding diversity and inclusion into everything that we do. What I'm going to focus on are just 4 key elements, and I'm happy to take questions during the break. But particular to our Catalyst Award, which Pat noted we received for our programs, initiatives, and efforts that result in the advancement of women and women of color through our organization, we were recognized really for these 4 key elements: our direct connection to the business strategy, our leadership commitment, what we call our top-down, bottom-up, middle-out approach. It's really a multifaceted approach to diversity and inclusion. And very importantly, measurement and accountability. We all know what gets measured gets done. We have the appropriate accountability through recognition and reward. Our investment in diversity inclusion really focuses on our workplace and our marketplace. From our workplace and our dedication to leveraging diversity and inclusion for our people, we have been able to determine through engagement surveys, our business resource group surveys, every kind of survey and data analysis you can imagine, that we have the ability to attract and retain the best talent. We also have been able to identify diversity and inclusion as a significant driver for our employees in their reasons for staying with Sodexo and their reason for recommending Sodexo to others. In our recent 2012 survey, diversity and inclusion was recognized as a key driver for engagement. 74% of employees responded either they agreed or strongly agreed to each of the diversity and inclusion engagement drivers. For our business, we are hearing more and more from our clients that this is an area of interest, and not only interest, but requirement to do business with them. More and more we're being asked in formal proposals, bids for business or rebids, to articulate and demonstrate our commitment to diversity and inclusion as well as sustainability, et cetera. So we find that it is increasingly important to clients, and certainly leveraging the diversity of our talent across the globe results in greater innovation for our clients. It also provides access, increased web of influence, consulting. We've got North Shore Long Island Jewish here. We're happy to be doing some diversity consulting with as well. You all hear it starts at the top. We need commitment from the top, but for us, it's more than just talking the talk, it's really walking the talk. Our senior leadership is required to role model diversity and inclusion throughout the year. Our senior leadership and our executive leadership, including Pat, is required to model that behavior throughout the year. Pat, for instance, chairs our African American Leadership Forum, one of our 9 business employee resource groups. He also recently served on our Diversity Leadership Council. In addition to those, there are requirements throughout the year that he is a leader, and then cascaded down throughout the organization, our employees have to model throughout the year, and that is analyzed and it's rewarded at the end of the year. And I'll talk a little bit about that when I get to the accountability piece. This is a bit of an eye chart, but it really illustrates for us our holistic approach to diversity and inclusion, and illustrates that top-down, bottom-up, middle-out approach. I've talked about the top-down. Equally important, the middle-out and the bottom-up. For bottom-up, we leverage that through our business resource groups, among many others, and that really reflects the grassroots involvement of our employees, our frontline employees. As I mentioned, we have 9 business employee resource groups. We survey them regularly. We just had our 2012 business resource group engagement survey, and 65% of those felt that the business resource group increased engagement. That's a terrific trend for us, and we want to continue leveraging that grassroots involvement to drive our strategy. Our middle out strategy is really where the rubber meets the roads, our managers, our middle managers, if you will. And there's a bifurcated focus on, again, the workplace and the marketplace. And that's really where we can operationalize our diversity and inclusion efforts. provide and engage clients for D&I solutions in the market, close those talent management gaps that we identify through our formal talent review, succession planning, and again, our diversity scorecard, which formally measures our quantitative and qualitative components for diversity and inclusion. A very key element to our diversity and inclusion efforts is building and maintaining a culture of mentoring. And again, this aligned with the bottom-up, middle-out, top-down approach. We have the informal, kind of situational mentoring, peer-to-peer mentoring through our business resource groups, situational, kind of just-in-time, as well as our formal facilitated mentoring program called Impact. We pair approximately 125 partnerships each year. Candidates are nominated for the program. There's an emphasis cross-culturally as well as cross lines of business. The program is carefully measured, and we find that there's a 1 to 2 return year over year, predominantly due to the enhanced employee retention and productivity. We've had a little bit of a technical glitch, so if I can ask EJ to toggle to a slide that I'll have behind me. Thank you. We, of course, measure the return on investment for our Impact Mentoring Program, which enables us to gauge baseline performance at the beginning of the program, enables us to measure satisfaction with the program from start to close, as well as those intangible benefits that are not easily converted to return on investment. The bottom line is, from a representation perspective for women, and which is also one of the criteria looked at by Catalyst, 30% of women in Impact were promoted after completing the Impact program. If I could toggle back to this PowerPoint presentation. Thank you, EJ. Another key element of our diversity initiative is our learning strategy. And again, it's focused on continuous improvement in design, development, and delivery. At the beginning of our journey, as you heard Pat mention, we were settling a class action lawsuit. So naturally, the focus was on compliance, doing the right thing, understanding EEO and affirmative action. 10 plus years later, we've matured over those years and are continuously calibrating. I'll steal a line from my boss here that he shares the story of Michael Phelps in the Beijing Olympics. He won 8 gold medals. Do you think he sat back and said there's no room for improvement? Absolutely not. He looked at his performance and he came back 4 years later and achieved another phenomenal feat. That's continually what we do in our organization from an operational perspective in the organization, but certainly with respect to diversity and inclusion. Again, we continually recalibrate to determine what the needs are in the organization. We look at our demographics, and we also are continuously improving our learning opportunities based on the maturation of our organization. Just highlighting a few of learning labs, which we require a target number of our employees to complete each year as part of our scorecard. We have training such as bridging the gender gap, bringing your whole self to work, which pairs an openly gay facilitator with a other facilitator to educate organizations on the impact, seen and unseen, that occur in the workplace. Cross-cultural communications, and most importantly for this audience, cultural competence in healthcare, which we see as increasingly more important in overcoming health disparities, as well as improving patient satisfaction from your extremely diverse communities. As I mentioned, measurement and accountability are extremely important, and they are formally embedded into our diversity and inclusion strategy. We have what we call our Sodexo Diversity Index, or we call our Diversity Scorecard, which measures both quantitative and qualitative components. On the quantitative side, it measures hiring, promotion, and retention, and it's all legal, based on availability. They're not targets pulled out of the air. We look at internal as well as external availability based on census data. From the qualitative side, we look at the engagement and involvement of our executive leadership, our senior leadership, as well as our managers. We also require particular numbers of awareness and skill opportunities, so that would be diversity learning labs, not only for our managers, but for our frontline employees as well. We also look at the development, promotion, and retention of our diverse employees. So it's one thing to identify them as top talent. Are they getting the education, training, learning opportunities? If so, are they yielding promotions? If not, why? So we look at that as well. Additionally, we have supplier diversity as a component of our qualitative elements because, again, we have a holistic approach. One thing that we are broadening into this year is our partnership with USBLN, which is the only organization right now to have a certification for individuals, businesses owned by individuals with disability. That score is weighted, summarized into one overall scorecard, and then calibrated annually. Now here's really where the rubber meets the road, and our CEO has committed to this even in our economic difficult times that we're all experiencing, and that Sodexo is committed to paying out a bonus regardless of our financial performance for the company. So Pat Connolly had in the executive team, 25% of their bonus is tied to performance and achievement of the diversity scorecard, 10 to 15% for our senior and mid-level managers. This slide here just highlights some of our results. Again, I mentioned our engagement survey. It was even higher for managers. 83% of managers responded favorably when asked if their individual differences were valued. We've seen a growth in both our hourly and management employee in terms of female and minorities. And we experienced the greatest increase for executives for women and minorities, the greatest increase for senior leaders. So in summary, you've heard it all before, but really we have borne the results of a heightened focus on diversity and inclusion, engagement and focus at the top, continuous evaluation of our demographics, our programs and initiatives. We've leveraged it through success through the retention of clients and our access to C-suite and our continuous recalibration of our diversity and inclusion scorecard. Thank you. Okay. Oh, okay, thank you. Yes.
How do you stay motivated when you look at the work that you put into it and you look at other companies, other industries, and quite honestly, there isn't the same type of discipline and motivation. Where do you get that internal motivation as an organization to continue?
Well, certainly, it's multifaceted, answer or prong answer, but there are many components. The first certainly is our continuous recognition, the seeking of recognition. You heard that we were rated #1 by Diversity Inc. In 2010 and 11. 2010, 11, and 12, we were dropped down to #2. So there's that kind of competitive piece of it. What is that? Why? Why did we drop? And one thing that we noted was that while we had success for women in leadership, when we peel back the onion a bit, we saw that we had room for opportunity and improvement for women in operations, and particularly women of color in operations. So that is going to be is an area of focus for us this fiscal year and onward. How can we improve in that area? So kind of that competitive piece, certainly. The other piece is our commitment to the diversity and inclusion scorecard. And it is taken very seriously. We have, throughout the years, further embedded the diversity and inclusion into our pipeline, kind of lower down in the organization, if you will. We have a grading scale, like I'm sure many of you do. So we have dipped that requirement deeper down into the organization so that we can encourage that role modeling of behavior. And then also it's a requirement that it's embedded into our performance reviews. It's a key competency for our leadership. So it's not just in one place. It really is a holistic approach that we really embed into our processes. Thank you.